Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Real Stories of Success podcast. I am Ryan Herget, sitting here with my good partner and good friend, Austin Lahr. Austin, what is the good word in the world today, my friend?
Oh, just trying to figure out how to get through about 17 Zoom calls a day. That kind of thing. What's new in your life? How's real estate going right now? You guys doing virtual open houses? Are you still seeing buyers? What does that look like?
Man, it's really not slowed down. And it's exciting to talk about this because, for anybody that's out there still doing the work, still, doing the things that, make money in this industry, stuff we talk about all the time, the green light activities. If you're still doing the green light activities, you are still busy. And that's what I love about this. You're having to find new creative ways to solve challenges. As an example, you mentioned the open houses. I'm doing open houses now where I basically sit out on the porch and I let one person in at a time and then go in and clean it. And, so just taking every single precaution that you can, but it's still doing business. And what's exciting about that is we're finally starting, after about a month and a half, starting to see more and more homes, at least here in, the Indianapolis metro area, finally come back on the market. But sales have not stopped. Sales have not stopped. There was, in fact, in the last 7 days, I think there was 1,300 homes that sold or went under contract, and only just north of 700 that came on the market. So, and that has continued. So I'm excited about what's going on. Anybody that's willing to put the time in and find new ways to solve, the world's challenges right now is still busy. And that's exciting for me, man. And that's
it is
what
exciting.
the show's about. So
you are right, man. People that are doing the work are still doing the business, right? So just got to figure out a better way to do it.
So speaking of doing the work, we have got a really cool guest, and I was super excited to meet him face to face a couple months ago before all of this COVID stuff, happened at an event. But we're talking to Alan today. So Austin, introduce Alan. Tell us what's going on here, because I'm excited.
Yeah. We got Alan Thorup, executive director of Mortgage Bankers Association. I've been in the business, the mortgage business did origination for 24 years, and then plus some. Now did billions back in his production day, and we're going to get into how many different hats he's worn in this industry, right? From producing to managing to underwriting to everything. So welcome, Alan. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So Alan, you started your career back when things were just a little bit different. Things when you got into this world of real estate, mortgages, it was 1983. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So paint our audience a picture right now, because our audience, a lot of them are newer in the industry right now, and they're maybe 2-3 years into their businesses and getting their really getting things going. But let's go back, because one of the things that I have come to fully appreciate after having been in this business almost 20 years now is what experience can teach us. And when I first got in, when I was in my 20s, I of course knew everything, like many 20-year-olds. But taking the advice, there's always key mentors and people. So people that have been around the industry have such an appreciation for, because you've seen how things have come and gone and changed and evolved. So I'm super excited to talk to you. So tell us what was going on back then, and paint our audience a picture of what being in the industry looked like.
Well, like you, Ryan, I was in my 20s way back when, and I had finished up with my college and was trying to extend a career into retail. And 1981, 82 were terrible years. We had a recession at that point in time. Gas had gone all the way up to $1.30 a gallon, which actually, when it was 45 cents a gallon a few years earlier, that was a pretty big shock. But like many people, I fell into mortgage banking, and I got into it as a branch manager in the early 80s. And when I started being trained on mortgage banking, I was also running a teller line as a management trainee. I had other responsibilities, but I learned by sitting in on applications for months. And things were, as you mentioned, radically different back then. We had an economy that was starting to pick up. We had interest rates that had gone down, which was great, but they had gone down from 18% down to about 14%. Mm-hmm. So, Austin, if you want to do a calculation on 100,000 at 14%, I think your P&I will be a little bit higher than it is today.
Yeah.
But we had an environment where a lot of the originations were done by savings and loans. The mortgage banker market wasn't nearly as big. The brokers weren't nearly as big. And the products that you had were limited to a great extent. We had, back then, you had a 30-year fixed, a 15-year fixed, an FHA, a VA, and they came out with this thing called an adjustable mortgage loan, the precursor of the ARM loan. And when they first came out at 9.99% with the company that I had, believe it or not, they were going fast and furious out the door. But everything was manual back then as well. In fact, most of my career, when I took applications, it wasn't over the phone. You and I were in person. Sometimes the realtor was there with the customers during the application. And so we took applications by hand. We processed them in an orderly fashion, but radically different than what you have today.
So I want to kind of dive into that a little bit, because at this time you're in the bank, correct? People are coming in, into the bank. So tell us, because it sounds like one of the things, from, just reading up on you, that you've really built a very solid career on customer service and really taking care of the customer. And I would imagine a lot of that came from that, the early lessons you learned there. Tell us about that. Where did you really get that from in really valuing customer service like you did? Because that obviously, turned to help you out a huge amount as your career evolved.
Yeah. And in fact, what I learned from my mentors back then, and they were branch managers that I worked for in about a 1.5 to 2 year period. And when I sat in on their applications, they went over them with me, and they sort of taught me that taking a mortgage application from start to finish and a successful closing is like a chess game. You make your moves during that chess game, and sometimes you have to switch directions. You have to be able to see further ahead what's going to happen. So I learned by mistakes that I made, mistakes others made, and the mentoring I got from the branch managers and the others in the mortgage department that said, when you take an application for a customer, look at that application, understand there's a lot of questions there, but when you get answers that beg another question, don't be shy, ask it. Find out, okay, well, why is this? Well, why is that? And try to project based on the consumer's answer, what do you need to do? What do we need to do? And from that standpoint, I developed a good customer service habit, and I always tried to put myself in the position of that consumer, because today, as well as 30, 35 years ago, most of the people that come into the mortgage lending situation don't know mortgage lending that much. So it's our job to educate them to make the best decisions for them, not only in the products that they get, but how they're going to manage their life going forward. And I used to tell people, I can talk to you all day long about what I think is best for you, but I'm never going to make your mortgage payment. You are. And so what's not going to keep you up at night is the product that you select that you're comfortable with. So I always tried to look at, not only from the borrower standpoint, what's in their best interest, but in working with realtors, I learned a long time ago. In fact, one of the best bits of advice I ever got was from a realtor sales manager who said, take care of my customers. I'm referring to you the most important piece of my business, my consumers that are wanting to buy a house. And he said, if I refer a customer to you, it's like handing over my commission check to hold for a bit. Now, if I get that commission check back when I expect it back, and it's not hard to get, I'll probably send you another commission check to hold. But if I don't get it back when I expect it, if you make it very difficult for me to get it back, then why would you expect me to send you another commission check to hang on to? And I never thought of it that way until he said that. But that impressed upon me in many respects that, as big of a concern of taking care of my customer was, I have to take care of my referral source just as well, and in some cases even better.
I would definitely.
Yeah, that's still true today, right? We rely a lot on technology, but I definitely impress upon our guys that take as many applications you can over the phone or face to face. Obviously, now face to face might be a little bit different, but Zoom calls or whatever. But you build that rapport and you make a connection, and we all know that most of our buyers are probably going to be in the market again in 3 to 5 years, and they also have family to send us back to, and so making that, not relying on technology has been a big piece for us too. I'd like to dive into, Alan, for those in our audience that don't really know about the Mortgage Bankers Association. Kind of explain, we've talked about some events that you guys do and maybe some training. So kind of walk our audience through exactly what it is that the Mortgage Bankers Association is there for, and how can they maybe reach out if they have questions on that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Indiana Mortgage Bankers Association is the trade association here in the state of Indiana that represents the interests of mortgage bankers and those that are connected to the industry in multiple ways. As we're going through right now, and we'll be going through for a while, the COVID-19 issues, there's a lot going on from a legislative standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, and we have been proactively engaged today in making sure county clerk's offices stay open, making sure that the ability for our members to do business continues. So we're lobbying, if you will, not only at the state level, but we help with the Mortgage Bankers Association nationally with what's going on right now in trying to maintain liquidity in the market and help businesses stay in business to be able to offer to consumers the products that they need for their home ownership needs. But we've done that for years in various capacities based on legislation that comes up here in the state of Indiana and regulations that come out. We were involved with the remote online notary legislation that was passed and the implementation of that, and we've encouraged the Secretary of State, which they did, to move up the date for implementation on that. So from an advocacy standpoint, that's one of the pillars of our association, is to advocate for our members and what their needs are to conduct business. And by extension, that positively impacts the realtors, the builders, the title companies, and others. And we work proactively with all those trade associations that are housing related to ensure the free flow of business as much as possible and meeting Hoosiers' needs for their homes. In addition to that, we put on training sessions on a regular basis, both statewide with our state convention, production conference, and compliance seminars, as well as at the chapter level. And we've got 7 chapters now. We've got Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, South Bend, Mishawaka, Maryville, Terre Haute, Bloomington, and Evansville. And each of those chapters, from a training standpoint, operates independently. And Austin, as we were talking about earlier, we had you in a local chapter luncheon years ago with a panel of experts, of mortgage originators and a realtor. We were planning on having you again at our production conference that, due to COVID-19, has been canceled. Now we're going to reschedule it. But what we want to do in these meetings where we have speakers such as yourself and others, we want them to walk away saying, you know what, I am so glad I was here. I learned some good things that are going to help me do my business better, help me take care of consumers better. And also, by extension, meeting people that can have a positive impact on our lives and people who we can have a positive impact on their lives as well. So those are the 2 main thrusts that we have in advocacy and training, along with networking.
Well, I was happy to do it, and when we ever do get out of this thing, I'm all about doing some more of those stuff.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's so awesome that groups like yours, the Mortgage Bankers Association, put on events like that, because Austin and I talk about this all the time. I mean, you're a product of the people that you surround yourself with, and when you're around people that are doing great work and moving the business forward in very positive ways, like you guys are, that only rubs off, and it only stems to more and more success for everybody involved. I've learned, and so I kind of want to ask you about that, because throughout your career you've kind of helicoptered up a little bit. You started out as the person in the bank. You were a loan officer doing 20 deals a month every single month, year after year after year. And as this business has evolved, as we're kind of navigating through some very changing times right now, you've seen those changes throughout your career. What do you tell somebody that's in this business right now? What do you tell somebody that needs to keep moving forward to be successful? What do you tell that person right now? Because you've been around this, you've seen so much change, you've navigated it very, very successfully, and now you're helping people at the highest level in the industry right now. What do you tell the person right now that's just kind of getting into the business, though, or maybe just a couple years in, that really wants to get things moving forward? What's important for them?
Well, the first thing in my mind is you have to be that proverbial sponge. and soak up as much information as you can from those around you. And not only those that are paid to mentor you, but listen to others, get engaged, meet people. I often say, how many of you will be more successful if you meet fewer people? Raise your hands.
Yeah.
Nobody obviously raises their hands. And that's one of the reasons why I got engaged in Mortgage Bankers, is I got a chance to meet more people. But I would tell young people or people getting into the business, whatever age, soak up as much as you can. Listen to what's going on around you. Read as much as you can. Go into non-company meetings, in other words, Indiana Mortgage Bankers, or go to professional meetings, or do your research and listen to people and how they've succeeded. There's some tenets in this business that it doesn't matter if you're selling mortgage loans or widgets. If you don't return somebody's call, you're not going to get their business. If you don't do what you say you will do, the proverbial DWI, SYWD that I shared with you earlier, you're not going to get people to want to do business with you. And that was hammered into me. And I think as a sales manager, I tried to hammer that into my originators and others on my staff, is that if you say you can meet the contract date, meet the contract date. If you say you're going to be able to get this loan closed, get it closed. If you look at situations and you make commitments, you have to follow through with them. If something unexpected comes up, you may not be able to, but at least based on the information that you have at that time, you made the right call. But always seek to improve yourself. One of the books that I read years ago that was a foundation for how I tried to not only live my life, but to mentor others, was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And, you look at the principles that are there in terms of being proactive, basically seek to understand before you try to be understood, sharpen the saw, always try to continually improve yourself. But the other thing is, and this is so important as well, what are your end goals? Begin with the end in mind. If your end is, I want to be the best originator I can be, and that's all you want to be, that's a great and a wonderful career. But if your aspiration in getting into mortgage banking is to own your own mortgage company, well, there's a heck of a lot more than just being a good originator if you're going to own your own mortgage company. So look at what your end goals are in your career and take steps, not only on a daily basis, but on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis to meet those goals.
Yeah, I love that. The 7 Habits. It's such a good one, guys. Out there, go get that book. Something that you can. It's easy stuff. You can live by it every day and constantly improve. Alan, I'm curious. So you've been doing this for a very long time. You've got a lot of different perspectives, and we already talked about how things have changed from the time that you started to how things are now with COVID. What do you see happening? How do you see this industry changing going forward? Or do you see it changing? Do we go back to the way it was 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when this whole thing's over?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see in the short to medium term us going back to where we were on February 28th. There are changes are going to be systemic for a while. This is to some extent similar to 9/11. We've never gone back to September 10th, 2001. We haven't, and in my lifetime at least we won't. But I don't see this as being long-term damaging if we handle it appropriately. But if you're in the mortgage business, you have to understand the new rules of the game in how you have to market your services and your products in dealing with consumers, and be able to understand, how is this impacting what I do? And you're going to have a market that's going to constrict here for a while at least. Ryan, I've heard stories from realtor contacts that I know and originators that I know of people that have listed their house and then they've lost their job, or they've lost that opportunity to transfer. And you've got people that want to buy a house, they've lost their job, they've been furloughed. Well, how do we handle those situations and prep for those people getting back into the market? It's unprecedented in terms of the numbers. We've always encountered what we're encountering now to a much smaller degree in terms of job losses, et cetera. But we're looking at a significant tectonic, if you will, shift in the business that we have to adjust to. And it's everything from products being offered, which, right now the market is constricting. You just simply don't have the products available today, and you don't have the companies today that you did back on February 28th. But there's still opportunities for success. And you mentioned it early, Ryan, before we got started here. Business is still going to flow. But what are the adjustments that you have to make in dealing with consumers, in working with realtor and builder partners and other partners in the business? And what are some of the concerns that you now have to address that back on February 28th, you didn't have to? But there are going to be ways for success. My hope is that from a federal government and a state government perspective, they listen to, and to a great extent they listen to the concerns of our industry. And that means realtors, builders, originators, everybody that's engaged in mortgage banking, and how we can meet the needs of homeowners in our state.
I think just to put an exclamation mark on what you just said there, I couldn't agree with everything you just said more, is that and I've never heard this analogy, and I'm totally going to steal it from you, Alan, but it's that the game of chess analogy, and you really do more than ever before have to navigate a couple steps ahead because of what you just said. And I'll give you an example. I'm going through this right now, but when I sold a listing, I mean, it was literally that weekend of March 13th when everything shut down. We put this home on the market, navigated through it, and I just didn't do as much due diligence as I possibly could have when researching the lender. And Austin, you and I had the conversation about this one the other day. And now we're dealing with some challenges, and we don't know if this buyer is going to keep her job. We don't know exactly what's going on, but we're delayed a month because I didn't do as much due diligence and ask that next hard question that I probably could have or should have. And so that's what I really want to encourage people to leave with here is do ask that hard question. Think ahead right now more than ever, because things are changing daily, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I was very happy to do years ago when I encountered sporadic situations where people did lose their job or we had to turn them down is I tried to empathize as much as I could with the borrower and share as much as I could with the referral source about the situation. But I always tried to leave them with a positive note that says, maybe we couldn't help you today, but here's some steps that we can work on together, or some things that you can do so at some point in time we can help you again. So I think counseling consumers, counseling your business partners on what you can do in some of these situations is going to be critical for future business. And people remember that. I've had multiple situations, and I'm sure, Austin, you've had them as well, where you took care of somebody professionally, you took care of them in a empathetic fashion, and you couldn't do the loan today, but you handled it appropriately. You handled it if it was from a referral source. You let them know what you could let them know, and you encourage them to come back again. And once you help that person get the loan the second time they apply, they're going to refer you additional business.
It's never a no. It's just a maybe not right now type of situation. We do that a lot. So, Alan, as we kind of wrap this up, man, really appreciate you coming on. This has been great.
Thank you.
Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and maybe even some upcoming things that they can look for from the Mortgage Bankers Association coming up that you want people to know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can be reached at inmba@sbcglobal.net, inmba@sbcglobal.net. And you can also go on our website, which is www.indianamba.org, and take a look at what's on there. We do have events that were canceled that we're trying to reschedule for later. One of the events we were hoping to have this month was USDA doing a presentation at a luncheon, but that's not going to work out. Yeah. So we're looking to reschedule both in-person meetings when it's safe to do so, but we're also going to start offering some webinars as well. We're looking to schedule our state convention now for September. That was for June. We're looking to have a production conference in November that was scheduled for March. So we'll keep that information up to date on the website as well. But if anybody's interested in reaching out to us, we'd love to hear from you. And, this too shall end, I believe is a common saying. And we will go back to some semblance of normal at some point in time, but we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun, Alan. We very, very much appreciate your time here this morning. And that'll wrap up the latest edition of the Real Stories of Success podcast. I'm Ryan Herget here with Austin Lahr. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.